Okay. And then,
you can put it back up there. You can put the release up there.
oh yeah. There we go. And okay, unmute now. Okay, thanks everybody for joining. Reminder to please mute your phones if you're not speaking, and we'll get started here.
Yeah, thank you so much to everyone who's joined us here today, to the media that have joined us, importantly to Judith, the CEO of Regina's Downtown Business Improvement District, as well as Lisa, the CEO or Executive Director of Regina's Warehouse Business Improvement District, important business leaders within our city and within our province. I do want to say that, of course, on a daily basis, our number one priority for all of us is the response on the health front and on flattening the curve and in making sure that we're protecting people at this time with the terrible pandemic that we face. But today we're renewing our call for needed urgent small business support for small businesses, for local businesses across Saskatchewan. The fact is, these businesses are facing a terrible cash crunch. Their cash flows have been devastated as their revenues have taken either a very serious hit or have completely disappeared when they've been having to force or having to close their doors to business to play their part in protecting the public as well. This is a serious situation for local businesses. Of course, local businesses are key economic drivers. They're also points of pride as a community and places that we gather. But they're so critical economically in providing jobs and creating jobs, and we need to make sure that our local businesses are in a position to open their doors as we come through this terribly challenging situation and help build Saskatchewan's economy once again. To address the serious cash flow crisis that Saskatchewan small businesses are facing, we're calling for the immediate launch of grants to small businesses to address this very serious cash flow challenge that they're facing. We're also calling for lease or rent relief, including allowing payments on business leases, mortgages, and other term contracts to be deferred for up to 6 months. I can't stress enough how often I'm hearing from local businesses that have lost their revenues, that have had devastated cash flows, but of course still have those expenses, and front and center within that are those leases. So certainly they need some relief and flexibility on this front. Thirdly, we're calling for new protections for small businesses by putting a 6-month moratorium on evictions, seizures, and foreclosures on business leases, mortgages, and other secured contracts. We see these as important measures to step up and assist local businesses at this time. Local businesses, as I say, are key to the economy. They also contribute a lot to Saskatchewan's finances, and by way of direct taxation, by way of their economic impact, and by way of the employment that they support and create. So it's important and more than reasonable for us to grant some of those dollars back to local businesses right now to help them weather this storm and to ensure that they can open their doors at the end of this and help build the province. We are joined, as I said, by Judith, the Executive Director of Regina's Downtown Business Improvement District, as well as Lisa, the Executive Director of Regina's Business Improvement District with the Warehouse District. I'd certainly invite at this time for both of them to offer any comments that they'd care to offer.
Lisa, did you want me to go first? Yeah, you're the boss. Sure. So thanks to everyone who's on the call. I appreciate your interest in this challenge that we're all facing together. What we're hearing from our membership is that while they appreciate the support and subsidies and grants and loans that are out there offered by both the federal and provincial governments, a lot of the businesses that we have in our small commercial centers fall through the cracks. And employment subsidies are great. They help keep the folks that are employed currently. It's taking a little bit of the pressure off of the business to fulfill that payroll requirement, and it allows them to keep operating. But what happens to the business that has had to completely close? Their employees are able to access the emergency benefits or the EI benefits that they might qualify for, but ultimately, if the business is closed, there is no relief for them aside from deferrals for property tax and or PST or GST payments. Ultimately, the rent bill is still there. The rent is does still have to be paid. And when you're a nightclub or a nail salon or a massage therapist that are mandated to be closed by the state of emergency, and mind you, all of these businesses understand their role and they are not disputing the need to be closed, but the fact of the matter is that there's no revenue being generated at that time, during this time, and that means that there's nothing left in the till to pay the bills that are still accumulating. So we certainly applaud government's efforts to be looking at grant relief programs. What we've heard too is that loans and deferrals are great, but a lot of times they are just either racking up additional credit and or just putting off the pain till 6 months down the road. And what we really want to see is these places of employment, these nail salons, these nightclubs, these restaurants, be there at the end of this COVID crisis to be able to employ everyone that they had before, and hopefully to even grow their employment base. But it's going to be a long road, and I think to make sure all of our businesses are there at the end of the day, at the end of this crisis, some of those relief measures in the form of grants need to be implemented.
Thanks so much for those contributions.
Lisa, did you want to comment?
Sure, I'll give you kind of the summary for the warehouse district. So we are looking at 4 pillars of focus during the coronavirus, which is of course public health. We're focused on general public, but also business owners and staff. And we're also thinking about mental health as we have that discussion with both of our members and different levels of government and stakeholders. We're also looking at economic relief, grants versus loans. Cash flow is a huge challenge across the board. We're also focused on information sharing, and then finally we'll be looking at recovery. So those are kind of our 4 pillars at this moment. We are the home of craft brewing and the entertainment district. Both of those have been devastated by the coronavirus, and the businesses and property owners all understand they have a major part to play, and I've been very proud of their proactive approach in closing their doors to the public, pivoting to having curbside pickup. They're doing their best to make sure that the general public is safe. However, these measures that they've implemented to pivot are not enough to pay the bills, nor are they enough to pay staff. So there are some challenges that they're facing, and the same with property owners who may own 1 or 2 buildings and don't have that same deep pocket, perhaps, where they can just ride out the storm. So if we can find some ways to support cash flow through grants as opposed to racking up more debt, and starting to have an eye towards recovery. What is that going to look like for our small businesses? And how are we going to get all of these folks back in startup mode? And thanks so much, Trent, for bringing this call together.
No, thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Judith, for the perspective of your members, and thanks for your leadership. I know it must be an incredibly stressed time for both of you in responding to the needs of your members. I'd certainly take any questions. I'd certainly take any questions from the media, and I suspect Judith or Lisa would as well. So if there's questions for any of us, go ahead.
I think this question I want to ask to Judith and Lisa. I don't know if either of you would like to pitch in on this one, but just engaging with conversations with members, what is the sense that you're getting from them based on what's been happening over the last couple weeks? How many of your members do you think are looking at a situation where they're looking at permanent closure or they're close to reaching that point if they're not able to get enough supports such as the suggestions that you guys are making today? What are those conversations you're hearing from your members?
Lisa, did you want to go first, or do you want me to go?
I can go first on this one. We've been conducting surveys so that we can best reach our members. We have about 600 small businesses in the warehouse district, so it's difficult to call them all on the phone. We did our initial survey when this first hit. Our second one is launching now. The rent checks have just come due, and so now we're expecting to see a little bit of that shift. We saw great numbers of businesses, about 80% had closed their doors. So this will be the first month where they'll have limited to no revenue. I think now we'll start knowing what those numbers actually are, and the scary part is we just don't know at this point.
From the downtown standpoint, in terms of exact numbers, we're in the same position as Lisa, where we have close to 700 members, between 700 and 800 members, and it's very difficult to contact each one. But that being said, we know of two businesses that have permanently closed downtown. Mind you, they were kind of struggling before the COVID crisis hit, and this was just the final nail, that kind of the straw that broke the camel's back, if you will. I think as the longer that we go, we're going to see more of those businesses on those bubbles kind of make that decision as to whether or not they're going to continue to take out credit and try and make a go of it, or to pack it in and cut their losses. So, I think the next 2 weeks are going to be critical in terms of our organizations reaching out to kind of take that pulse of where everyone's at now that rent check has come due.
And just a follow-up question for you, Judith, just so I can get some clarification. I don't know if out of those two members, I don't know if you're referring to the Capital as one of them, but if that is the case, who's the other business that had to permanently close their doors?
Queen Bee Clothing Store, also on Hamilton.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Bill from the Star Phoenix.
Go ahead, Bill.
Hello?
Oh, sorry, Phil. Go ahead, Phil.
Hey,
I'm wondering if you have a dollar figure for these grants, like how this program would actually work that you're proposing.
We're not being prescriptive at this time, Phil. That obviously needs to be built out quickly with the business community as well. Ultimately, the point we're trying to make is that businesses just taking on more debt isn't the solution. There needs to be something to address the cash flow crisis, and grants need to be organized in a fast and fair and effective way. And we think it's reasonable that local businesses that contribute a lot to the province, including through direct taxation to the province, would be able to be granted back some of those dollars at this time to help them weather this storm.
I'm wondering if the two business leaders have ideas about what a program would look like.
We've been coordinating research efforts with other business improvement associations across North America, in the States and in Canada. Obviously, there are different models being employed because there are different funding mechanisms in different jurisdictions. One that has that we think has some merit is a model offered by the state of Illinois. They are calling it their Hospitality Industry Emergency Relief Fund. Depending on how how large the business is. I believe there are some thresholds in terms of the payroll associated with the business. Grants between $5,000 to $10,000 for up to 3 months would be available. And I believe they had a budget of $15 million to help support that program. Obviously, things are so fluid right now, and as they receive feedback, I'm sure they're going to be tweaking it. But at first glance, that was something that we could explore and see if there's applicability and affordability for the situation we have here in Saskatchewan.
I think that grants certainly would be proportional to the cash flow impacts, the reality that businesses are facing, as well as proportional and reflective of the fixed cost, the overhead costs, including leases that people are facing.
Absolutely, and I think the Illinois model also included hotels with operating expenses under $5 million. So looking at those mom and pop motel, hotel, locally owned accommodation industry, I believe those were also businesses that qualified for that emergency relief fund.
Other questions?
Any other questions, folks? Well, listen, thank you so much to everyone that took the time to engage with us here today. And Judith and Lisa, thank you so much for joining us here today and sending care to you both and all of your members during this challenging time.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much for having us on with you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.